Unexpected Journey, Memoir of a Siberian Deportee by Juzė Avižienytė-Žukauskiene. Translated from Lithuanian and narrated by Giedrė Kumpikas, niece of the author, and by Isabelle Kumpikas, the sister of the author. Chapter 26, New Misfortunes. It was difficult to manage. It was especially difficult to bring out the hay for the animals from the deep snow, about 60 centimeters normal layer and in places 1 to 1.5 meters deep, which was piled up in the taiga quite a few kilometers away. Much strength and experience were necessary. Due to the lack of hay, the animals began to die. In the office, we would receive 2 or 3 reprimands on account of the dead horses and cattle. By March, we had received 72 reprimands. It was awful. The horses were necessary in the center of the collective farm, and the cows, which did not give milk in the winter, it was decided to bring them 15 kilometers deeper into the taiga, where there was a lot of hay piled up. Misich, from whom we had bought the chata, was living there. In addition, a guard feeder was also sent there, an old man who could barely move. The withered, skinny cows had very little strength to plod through the snow, which reached higher than their sides. Having spent their last strength, they would fall into the snow. The attendants would then beat them and used other means to force them to get up, but they were already indifferent to everything. They died. The attendant would cut the throat with a knife and continue his way with the remaining ones. The ones who had fallen were later placed on sleds and brought to the center of the collective farm. There they would sell the meat to the more deserving ones, not the hungrier ones. Of course, those people would buy some who had played up to the chairman and the warehouseman. A few times even I was issued 5 kilograms of that carcass meat. Because of that, my husband almost lost his life once. It happened as follows. At the office, we received a statement that one more cow, which had been brought under Misich's care, had died, and that meat was being sold. I was issued 10 kilograms. What a stroke of luck! I immediately dashed home and told my husband. I handed him the paid receipt, and he set out early in the morning. In the taiga, where the road is already well traveled, there is a guarantee that one will not lose one's way, because there are no other roads. To go and return 15 kilometers in one day in the north, the day is short, is almost impossible. But hunger is a powerful drover. "Don't be afraid, my dear, don't worry, I'll make it," said my husband in a determined fashion, and taking a sack went out. I was worried. To go and come back in the snow drifts of the taiga takes no less than 10 hours. Besides that, one needs to rest at least an hour on the farm and warm up, because one cannot sit down in the snow nor stop. If you stop to rest, you can freeze to death. He went out at 7 o'clock in the morning, that is 3 hours before dawn, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon it is dark again. But Siberian nights are light. Besides, there was moonlight. In the summer it is dangerous. You can meet a bear or step on a snake. But in the winter they sleep. There are no wolves here at all. The snow is too deep. I was expecting my husband to be back by 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. At about this time, I left the office to have supper. I found the children getting ready to light the stove and a pot filled with water placed on it. We are waiting for the father. He will bring home some meat. We will boil potato soup, which will smell of meat. This will be a great and rare feast. But our dreams quickly fell apart. A boy came running from the office and without even closing the door shouted, "Auntie, they brought your old uncle back frozen." I felt my hands and legs go numb. The children began to cry and started to get dressed to go with me. I forbade them strictly and told them to wait at home while I hurried to the office. When I ran in, I already saw a whole crowd of people in the waiting room and my husband lying on a bench, stiff. He was still alive and was groaning painfully. If anyone tried to touch him, he cried out frightfully from pain. Paying no attention to his cries, I pulled off his felt boots, which were full of snow. Someone brought snow, and the experienced native Siberians began to rub his feet with it. The sick man screamed with an inhuman voice. On the chairman's orders, someone brought a harnessed sled to bring him to the hospital, but I did not consent. I asked them to take him home and with the horse to go bring the doctor. We brought him into the hata, laid him on the plank bed. His legs and hands were like dried sticks. His joints did not bend. Ignoring his screams, his groans, through his clenched teeth, we took off his clothes. They immediately brought denatured alcohol. I began to rub his whole body with it, to massage him with brushes. His screams and groans subsided. His joints relaxed. His hands and legs got back their natural color. We gave him hot raspberry tea with alcohol to drink. The sick man fell asleep. The people gathered around the door dispersed. His trip ended with a very serious form of pneumonia. My good dear Dr. Šakenienė and the Estonian doctor's assistant Paukson did not spare their efforts to save him from death. It was quite far for both of them to come, and the cold was holding steadily at about minus 45 degrees centigrade and less. But paying no attention to anything and without any pay, they visited every day and did everything their force and possibilities allowed them. And thus our dear provider lay coughing heavily, while our food reserves were getting smaller and smaller. While he was healthy, he would run over to the camp of the free people, and they would exchange something for food. When he began to get better, he told us what had happened on that disastrous march. On the way there, I walked quickly. Hope was carrying me along, that we would have a little bit of meat for a long time, 10 kilograms for 5 people, even though I knew that I would most probably only get bones and membranes of a lean, starving cow rather than meat, but even that was some sort of food. When I got to the farm, I presented my receipt, but the guard, who was also the warehouseman, began to curse. What the devil? Why are they sending all kinds of people here? Mat, there is no meat. I gave everything out. Get out of my sight. Of course, this shocked me. I still tried to talk to him, that if not 10 kilograms, then perhaps he could give me at least some. But the answer again was, your mother. I left there very upset, tired and hungry. It was dark. I was plodding and plodding through the snow, and I felt that my legs were no longer obeying me. My hands were freezing, somehow stiffened, my joints not flexible. I had a great desire to sit down, but I knew that once I sit down, I will not get up. I began to call upon God. I called your names out loud, and again, gathering my forces, I plodded through the gloomy taiga, through the deep snow closer to home. I came up to the tracks where hay had been transported. I rejoiced that the road would be easier now, and that at least I would not get lost. Even though in the moonlight everything looks different. I found a fallen heap of hay, but again I was afraid to sit down. With stiffened hands, I lit a match and set fire to the hay. My stiffening hands and my face warmed up. But there was not much hay, and it did not burn long. I plodded further. I began to stop more frequently, leaning my chest against my stick. Finally, through the thinning taiga, I saw the lights of the village. Hope. Perhaps I'll reach it. But suddenly, as if a paralysis immobilized my muscles, and I felt that I cannot take another step. It was difficult to hold my balance. I felt that I was about to fall and that I would never again see my beloved faces. I was overcome with fright. I began to shout as loud as my voice would carry. No one answered. I started to call God's name. How terrible to die here alone, when help and my dear ones are so close. And the next thing I know, I woke up in the hata. I saw your face bending over me, and a terrible pain in my whole body. If it hadn't been for the pain, I would have thought that it was a hallucination before dying. And he was saved from death by that same Zhukov who had informed against me to the commandant. He recounted. It was moonlight. Rabbits were running around. I had placed traps on their paths. I went at night to check them. I thought I heard someone shouting for help. I wondered who could be calling for help not far from the settlement. I listened again, and once more a call in the name of God. I understood that help was really needed, and I set out in that direction. I see that a man is lying on the hay road. I ran up and tried to help him stand up, but he screamed. It even scared me. I tried to put him over my shoulder, and again that painful screaming. Then I tied together my skis. The branches of the wood of the tiger are very wide, about 30 centimeters, and sewed around with elk fur. And I put Liudas Andreevich on them, and whether he screamed or not, whether he groaned or not, I headed for the village.